Hi again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Around the Town with Chuck. My name is Chuck Guglielmo, a weekly interview show where we talk with interesting people around the community. And we are taping this show on Wednesday, January 3rd. And my guest today, he's been here before, the principal of Conneaut High School, now in his second year, Dr. Tim Neal. Tim, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Good to have Tim Neal on.
I always enjoy being on.
It's always a pleasure to talk to Tim. Tim, today you had a 2-hour delay. It's one of those options that I remember Lori telling me and you telling me that you don't really like to use because it can be disruptive.
Absolutely.
But last year when you used it, and I have to say again today when you used it, were the exact reasons to use it. Last year was that power outage,
Yes,
I think.
yep,
And this
power
year,
outage.
I think it was because of the wind chill maybe this morning?
You know, I'll clear that up a little bit. It really had a lot more to do with the snow.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the wind chill.
But the wind chill helped. It came into play. Like, it could have been, and the reason I say that is because Lori made that call, the 2-hour delay call, early. We had discussed it on January 2nd over the phone earlier in the morning. Because January 2nd was a holiday for classified staff. And so the discussion was getting the sidewalks, getting the walkways, getting the stairways cleared and safe for the students. Do we bring in people on what would be considered a holiday? Or can we 2-hour delay it, bring them in at normal time, and be able to have the facilities ready for students to enter?
That makes a lot of sense.
So that was the initial reason when the call was made. It just kind of worked out then in our favor with the wind chill. It was able to come up a couple degrees, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot when we start talking about lower temperatures. 2-3 degrees make a big difference.
Oh, sure.
And so because the start then being at 9, well, doors opening being at 9:15, starting at 9:35 versus 7:15, 7:35, it was able to come up a couple degrees, which probably would have been the call had we not already had that 2-hour delay in place. It was a great time for just that to use a 2-hour delay. Probably would have been the call, but early in the morning today versus a call yesterday.
Now, when we say when I said disruptive, obviously it's disruptive not just for the students, the parents, but it's also disruptive for the school personnel.
For the school day, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have to shuffle periods in that matter, and we shorten periods.
That was going to be my question. So you still have all the periods?
Still have all the
you
periods.
Just shorten them.
We
How
shorten them
much
up.
do you have to shorten them?
See, I was able to run it today at about, I think, 30-minute periods. They're normally close to 50. So it took about 20 minutes off a period to make sure that we could get all the periods in.
Mm-hmm. Tim, what else is new at Conneaut High School now? Like I said, you're in your second year here. How's the first half gone? What's been happening?
The first half has went well. It's gone well. I think academically, it's gone well. Athletically, winter sports are now midway in, we've been putting some things in place. We're taking a look at some curriculum. I don't want to say issues, but some curriculum alignments and courses, and where we're at with those courses, and how we can strengthen that curriculum, align it better to put our kids in a better situation academically. So those are some great discussions that are happening right now internally. The students have had a great first semester. Semester ended in December, so really excited
Now
there.
that's earlier than normal.
Last year was the first
January,
time,
right?
Yeah, usually January. Last year was the first time, and we followed suit this year as well, where the semester ended with the break versus getting through the break and then coming back for a week and then ending the semester.
Is it still 4 9-week?
Yes, still 4 9-week periods. So what really, if you probably noticed over the last, at least the last year to this year, graduation last year was, I think, May 18th. It's the 19th this year. It's a little bit earlier graduation than what we may have traditionally been used to. I'm used to thinking graduation is June 5th. Mm-hmm. But the reason for that being is, we're coming back, August 20th, August 21st.
That seems to be getting earlier and
And a
earlier.
little bit earlier and earlier there too, right? But it's that shift in the school year that's allowed you to be able to get in to a full semester, 2 full 9 weeks prior, ending right with the break, which I think is great. I think it's a nice clean cut, and then you come back for the second semester. It also helps align a lot better with state testing. End of course exams run through April, and so you really want to be closer to the end of your course. So a big shift like that, and you see it a lot around the county. Jefferson being the earliest. We're certainly not quite as early as Jefferson, but Jefferson being the earliest. But just about everybody in the county is on that shift where pretty much wrapping up by the holiday break, Christmas break for the first semester, and then having the second semester start in January right off the bat.
Any idea, Tim, why Jefferson is earlier than everybody else?
I don't. I know that as a district in the county, and I happened to be at Edgewood at this time when these discussions were happening, that they really had a big push. They wanted to make sure that they were out before Labor Day, or I'm sorry, not Labor Day, Memorial Day. Thank you. Out before Memorial Day, and they were a big proponent of, let's go a little earlier in August and let's get out mid-May. And they've kind of stuck to it the last couple of years. So we're not far behind. I think we're about 5 days behind them probably. But I think this year they started somewhere around the 16th maybe, and we started around the 21st.
Tim, how about student enrollment now at the high school? That's grades 9 through 12. Do we have a count as to how many attend the high school?
Yes, absolutely. We're at about 530, I'm going to say. It fluctuates a little bit, but about 530 is a solid number, and I have about 100 at ATEC, which we lead the county with students attending ATEC, which is really nice. It's great to see. And so that puts me at about 430, 440 in the building. So
about 500 and, what'd you say?
About 530.
530 at the high
students,
school.
9 through 12.
Okay. Tim, a lot of talk lately about these new conferences coming in, and that's why I got Tim on. We had a great discussion on it.
Absolutely.
And when we saw those teams like Slippery Rock and Sharon and Conneaut Valley, is it? The three schools.
Yeah,
that
the 3 schools, Conneaut Lake, Conneaut Valley, and Conneaut area, all combined to Conneaut schools. Yeah.
And when we saw those names, right away, the first thing that went through my mind, and I think many others, boy, we're going to have a lot of traveling to do. But you said those schools are only going to be in the football conference with the Spartans.
Well, I won't say only. I'll say it's a mix. It's not across the board. We tend to concentrate on major sports when we look at things. The first thing that catches our eye, just as a fan, as a community member, is typically football, basketballs, baseball, softball. Those are things that tend to catch your eye, and football leading the way, of course, in the fall. And so it catches the eye right away that, oh, wow, but it's certainly not across the board in those regions. Every 2 years, District 10 looks at the regions and does an alignment predominantly based on enrollment, based on competitiveness, and then takes into account, as a last indicator, if you will, possibility of geography, and tries to really align it to where the regions are, maybe what they feel is more fitting. Some of those work out for the better. Some of those, in our opinion, and some of those for not the better, for the worse, or what we would think is not as ideal as before. I mean, certainly when we were football, and we were sitting in region 3, and we had Girard and Fairview and Harbor Creek, and we had these schools across the way that the Northeast that we're close in geography, you try to start to build that kind of inter-school competitiveness, rivalry, just down the I-90 corridor. Travel time, that was ideal. There's no arguing that was ideal. So when a realignment came out and you see, a Sharon, a Hickory, Slippery Rock, you realize it looks like every trip's going to be over an hour.
What were there, 4 or 5 of them? In that
Yeah,
football
so
conference?
it was Sharon and Hickory, Slippery Rock, Grove City, and then Conneaut schools.
So chances are, in football, you're only probably going to make 2 or 3 trips there, and then
Sure,
they'll come
and
up
then
here.
and then the other 2 or 3 are coming up here.
Now,
Yeah.
you had told me when we talked recently at a basketball game that was a proposal. And then you're
It
going to have
is.
a meeting shortly here, like the 5th or something?
It is. District 10 will have a meeting, and they will finalize the schedules. What they've allowed, which was interesting, this is our first go-around in this conference, and what's really interesting is that they provide the opportunity to at least provide feedback on each individual sport. So Joel Taylor, the athletic administrator, has the opportunity to go in specifically for football and then click on, they give a code and you click on football and you can provide feedback on your opinions, on your suggestions.
Now, is that just the AD that gets to
the
do that, or do you
AD
guys get to do that too?
Well, the AD specifically gets to do that. What's nice is as soon as that came out, Joel brought us all together, principal, all the head coaches, and we had a really nice breakfast meeting and came together, and everybody was able to kind of give him their input. And then he took that and formulated it into a response to District 10. And like I said, some of them very favorable. Softball realigned better. And so we were very pleased with that. And of course, we talk about football, and then we say, okay, well, here's some of our holdups. Travel's a big one. Competitiveness, I'm not going to say that we can't be competitive, but it's certainly a much more competitive league. We felt very favorably competitive with the Fairviews and the Gerards and the Harbor Creeks, and it's certainly going to be a lot more competitive playing the Sharons and the Slippery Rocks in the Hickories.
So their programs are a little bit better than
They're predominantly, as in football, better programs, and so. It's one of those things. I guess what I'll say, like I said, have been saying, the silver lining certainly is that it's not across the board. It's kind of sport by sport, and they do try to take a look at where each kind of sport is and where they might belong, and which really makes a huge impact. In a traditional conference, traditional league, you're in those same schools for all sports across the board. So maybe you're a great school for football, but maybe you're on some really lean years for softball or baseball, and they're going to really take some hard
Sure.
knocks because they have to play those schools. Where here it's softball. Now, like I said, we were very favorable, very pleased with softball, realigned with Region 4 with the Fort LaBeouf, the Fairview, the Girard, the Northeast. They had been making the longer travel to the bigger schools or more competitive schools, I should say. Not necessarily all bigger, but...
Looking at it for the football conference, so that's what, 5 teams you said?
Yeah, 5,
So
not
there's
not counting us.
5 games there.
There's 5
So
games.
now the other 5 games will come where?
Okay, 2 of those games will be crossover games with another region.
In Pennsylvania. Okay.
In Pennsylvania. Certainly we're hoping for crossovers from our previous Region 3 schools. So whether that be a Girard or a Harbor Creek, or so there'll be crossover games, and then 3 will be independent, which we already play on our schedule.
And those are the
games.
Ohio schools?
Those are the Ohio schools.
Do we know who those schools are in 2018? The Ohio schools, do we know that yet?
That's
or
not locked.
It's not
It's
locked.
not locked.
Not gonna give me any secrets, huh?
It's not locked. I will say I'm very very hopeful, very pleased with some discussions to get some close rivalries back on the schedule.
One's not about 10 miles down the
So
road, is it?
one might be about 10 miles down the road. Yeah.
That would be, I don't have to tell you, that's a
Yeah.
big time rivalry.
be
Look at
huge.
opening night when Edgewood came in for basketball, packed gym.
Packed gym.
It just
It
is.
would be huge.
So that's football. Now let's move on to the basketball conference.
Sure.
When we looked at that, when I was talking to you at the basketball game, it looked like pretty much the same teams that we're playing now over there in Pennsylvania, I think.
Yeah,
Look at the boys
There was
first.
not I wasn't really movement in basketball. We stayed in Region 4, and I think maybe the real movement might have been an addition of a team, which is Iroquois. And that was boys
my wife's
basketball.
alma mater.
Ah, very nice. Very nice.
She's been wondering why we don't play
Yeah,
that.
see? So they were.
So they're gonna be
kind
on
of
the schedule.
They're on the
Good.
schedule. And then in girls, trying to see.
Did we get Villa Maria off of there for poor Tony passing? Are they
We
still
did.
on there? We did. Oh,
We
good
did.
for Tony.
Villa Maria moved. Villa Maria moved.
Oh, good.
So he was pleased with that.
I would
he's,
bet.
He's pleased. He's pleased with it. His schedule's pretty close to the same region wise, but Villa Maria's moved into a different region.
Not
So
only
that's
do
a
the
big
teams change in sports, but it could be the same sport, but it could be different teams for the boys and the girls, right?
It can be different teams for boys and the girls. For instance, right there, when we look at basketball, boys basketball going to play Mercyhurst Prep and Seneca, Girard, Fairview, Northeast, Northwestern, Erie Christian, and Iroquois.
Oh, those are all close. And
all close
familiar.
and nice. Where the girls are in Region 5, where they're going to play Sharon, Lakeview, Greenville, but then also Fairview, Girard, Northwestern. So you notice those schools that were similar to the boys, the Fairviews, the Girard, are also in Region 5 with our girls there. So the regions are not necessarily the same as a matchup, boys to girls in any sport.
So those are the conference games in boys and girls basketball. And then
Yes.
does it work the same? Is it Joe who fills in the other games?
Yes, there'll be a few crossover games with a different region of schools in Pennsylvania, and then independent games, which that's where we pick up the Edgewoods and the Lakesides and St. John's.
So what's the wrestling conference? Now, they're not really in a conference, a Pennsylvania conference, are they?
Wrestling is
I
not.
thought that, what's his name, Bidwell told me that it was different.
It is different now, and we're in Region 2 in wrestling, so we do wrestle Pennsylvania schools.
I think we got Cathedral Prep coming in this year. I thought that I saw that in Conneaut for
Yes,
wrestling.
yes, yeah, and that actually was a. I want to say that was an independent pickup, Cathedral Prep, which is great because Coach Bidwell really looks to, try to get home matches. We've certainly expanded on that. I want to say we have maybe 6 home matches this year, which is really nice. Chance for the boys to be home. Because there was a time, you go back a few years, this would be, even previous to my Edgewood days, where wrestling had the pendulum kind of swung towards doing all the invitationals and tournaments, and sometimes schools only had 1 home meet or 2 home meets.
Right.
So it's nice to see them come home for matches.
Of course, your familiarity with the Pennsylvania schools like Girard, Fairview, Northwestern, because you were at
Absolutely.
Albion.
I was at
So
Albion.
you're more
and-
familiar with those schools than we are.
Yes, and in those ones specifically, it was the Erie County League in my time over there. So pretty much you kind of looked at those schools right there in Erie County. The Northeast, the Harbor Creek, Fairview, Girard, General McLean.
There's like about 10 of them,
About
I
10
think,
of
at
them,
one time.
yeah.
Yeah. With all these different teams and different conferences for the different sports, do you find it confusing at all? Now let's see. We're playing Seneca, but I don't know if it's the boys, it's the girls, where, and that kind of stuff.
I don't find it confusing in that aspect, but I certainly find it confusing, when someone asks and they say, well, hey, who are the schools that, boys basketball has to play this year? Then you really got to stop and say, okay, actually, let me break this out.
Yeah, right.
Because I know we moved to Region 3, and that's these schools.
Yeah. I used the word confusing only because when we were in the Northeastern Conference, we were in that Northeastern Conference for all the sports.
For all the sports.
Yeah.
Yep. No, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And like you had mentioned earlier, it's not just our school that is in different places, but the PA schools are as well. Mm-hmm. So even with this realignment, there are some of those schools who have moved regions and new schools come in, and so in that aspect, yeah, it's something you kind of stay on top of, and in 2 years, there will be a continuous cycle, and that's how District 10 does it.
Mm-hmm. Now, some of these schools over there don't participate in all the sports, right? I think Fairview doesn't have wrestling or something like that.
That's correct, and I don't know them all off the top of my head, but that's correct. And they have a few schools over there that have lacrosse, and certainly many schools don't. Mm-hmm. So there are sports where some of the schools don't have teams for that sport, and it makes the alignment, fewer regions, fewer schools in each region, certainly.
Tim, I read in the paper that the Spartans now have a swimming team.
A swimming team, we do.
How
absolutely.
did that develop?
That developed by there were a few kids who had reached out, said that they really wanted to swim. Is it something we could take a look at? Started with conversations, and then it started from that point, went to some phone calls with OHSAA, because we knew at 3 students, it's tough to justify a team. And so how could we take a look at this? How could we do this? We got some guidance from OHSAA. So our students actually swim under the Lakeside swim team. They are Conneaut swimmers. And then what will happen is when it comes to tournament time, they will swim for themselves as individuals for the Conneaut High School. So that way they had a team, they can compete as a team with other schools. But when it comes time for the OHSAA tournament, they will be Conneaut High School swimmers competing in the tournament as Conneaut High School. So it's been an interesting development, and it's been a great opportunity for those 3 kids. And I know that they're absolutely loving it, and they're thrilled at having the opportunity.
That's great. With this wacky weather that we got going out there, of course, it plays havoc with the sports schedules too.
Oh, now there's where the confusion comes in, Chuck.
Yeah, with the rescheduling.
Some of them I don't even know yet.
Yeah, I imagine that's Joel's job.
That's
right?
Joel's job.
To reschedule these games, and the times become different too. Like last night's game was a 5 o'clock tip-off. It
was a 5 o'clock tip-off. They didn't have JV. We didn't play a GV game, so we chose to move the varsity up, and then they went with the 5 o'clock start time. So sometimes it's just a matter of finding where the game fits, and it's interesting because you try to balance league and non-league when you talk about rescheduling. With District 10, the rule of thumb is supposed to be you play on the next available open date.
Oh,
so,
okay.
All
right.
You try to get your conference games in next available open date, and that could be Wednesday, a Thursday, when you can get the game in, and then sometimes you shuffle. And
I know you've got a basketball game to go to tonight, so let me close with this, Tim, because there's always confusion with this every year. So. And I asked you last year, and I'll ask you again now. Tomorrow night, the girls are at home against Mercyhurst Prep.
Okay.
And then Friday night, the boys are in Fairview.
They're at Fairview.
Now,
right.
There is also the possibility that both of those days could be inclement weather days for the school district. What happens? Now, both of those are, well, the girls' game is a home game, so if there's no school in Conneaut, I understand there's no game.
There's no game.
But what if they were on the road? How does that happen? And the road school had school.
And the road school had school. What we've kind of taken as a rule of thumb from last year is that if it was temperature that caused the inclement weather day, so we canceled school because of temperature, not because of travel conditions, but temperature, that we would travel to the school that still was in session. Because, the idea of canceling with temperature is due to, students in a walking situation and in the fear of frostbite. And so the idea is that we're not putting students in a walking situation if we're, they're getting dropped off at the high school, we're putting them on a bus, taking them to go compete. So the rule of thumb kind of has been if it's temperature that's canceled our day, that we will travel if the other school's still in session.
Or an away game, but if you
an
were
away game.
closed
But
because of temperature and you had a home game, you're still not playing that
but
game.
if we closed, we closed.
Okay.
Yeah.
That kind of clears that up. That's
Absolutely.
always confusing.
It is
People
always
ask me, I
confusing,
said, if it's
yeah.
a home game and there's no school, we're not playing that game.
Yeah.
No matter
No-
what.
no
If
matter
the sun
what.
comes out,
Yep.
things are looking
Dries
bright.
it up and
Yeah.
sunny and.
Because I think that happened once.
It
So
did
why can't
happen
we play the
once.
game?
That's right. When we close, we're making the decision then that we're closed for the day.
Right.
That we're not going to come in. But again, with if it's a temperature situation, we'll put the kids on a bus and travel, which is nice and has, I'll say, helped with some confusion. I've been in some previous places where you close because of weather, and then by game time you try to make a travel decision, and I think this way it's easier, it's clear cut. If we close because of weather, meaning travel conditions, then we're not going anywhere. We're not putting kids on a bus. We're just not doing it. We're not going to make a call later in the day.
Sure.
We're just not going to go.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. Well, Tim, go get the Spartans another win tonight.
Absolutely.
See if they get back-to-back
That's right.
wins.
Get back to back and get back on track.
And get back on track.
That's
and
right.
the boys got a lot of road games coming up. I don't think they're
we
home
do.
until the 16th.
We have a lot of road games coming
Yeah,
up.
a lot of road
Absolutely.
games.
Big road stretch.
So thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Dr.
My
Tim Neal,
pleasure.
Principal, Conneaut High School, my guest today on Around the Town with Chuck.